Hey everyone, Aisha here. So today I want to talk about the topic, how to advocate for your child's education as a single mom. So let me tell you a story in order to get started. So a single mom I know has a daughter in the third grade, and she posted this story to her social, right? And so her daughter is in the third grade, and the daughter is assigned tons of homework that takes the entire night for about 3 out of 5 nights of the week, right? So 3 nights of the week, she has tons of homework that takes the entire night, only leaving about 2 nights per school week where things are normal. And so one of the things that the teacher does is the teacher occasionally uses the homework as punishment. So if someone makes a mistake or the class does something that the teacher doesn't like, the teacher will use additional homework on top of what was already assigned as a punishment. And so it had just been like tons on the daughter, tons on the class. And so what the mom did is she went to the teacher. The teacher wasn't really responsive, so she escalated it to the principal, because really what the mom was concerned about was the amount of homework that was given and the potential for it to cause anxiety or like a dislike of school, just because it had been so overwhelming for the class. And so when she brought this up to the principal said that the only reason why this mom was coming to her with this issue was because she was a single mom and she couldn't handle her workload plus, the daughter's education. And she really blamed her single motherhood status on the reason why she brought all of this up. And so pretty much the mom let her have it. And she thinks that the principal won't try and call that out or use that as an excuse with someone else. And so the reason why I wanted to share this story with you is because just in my work as a consultant with a nonprofit that really works with childcare organizations to improve their quality in their educational curriculum. So, and also being a board member of an organization that focused on education for kids, one of the things that in that work I kept coming across, and even in conversations with other single moms, is these moms didn't necessarily feel equipped or comfortable to speak up for their children because they felt that they didn't have the expertise, they didn't have the educational background. So it was really the teacher's jobs and the school's job to educate their kid. And even if they didn't feel comfortable with some of the things that were going on or some of the things that they were seeing, they still deferred to the teacher's judgment, the principal's judgment, and really felt like they didn't have a voice in their child's education because they weren't the quote unquote expert. And so when I saw this story of this particular single mom that I know who spoke up and who spoke to the teacher, who spoke to the principal, and really became an active voice in advocating for her daughter, I wanted to be able to highlight that as an example of what it looks like to advocate for your kids. And so because too many single moms are outsourcing the education, they're leaving it up to the educational system. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't speak up, if you don't advocate for your children, then you won't have a voice in what your child's learning. You won't have a voice in the curriculum, and you won't be able to help shape the lessons. And so this is super important. And one of the stories that my mom told me when I was growing up is, especially in the Black community as well, because one of the things that I've heard recently, actually from one particular school, a Black parent had told me this about the school that she sent her daughters to. And she said that in that school, they thought that Black people, were less able to learn. And so they assigned a less rigorous curriculum for their Black students because they felt that the Black kids wouldn't be able to handle it. And so one of the things that my mom told me growing up is that Black parents tended to need to be more active in their children's education, even ones that were very highly educated, right? Their kids tended to be placed more in general education, less in AP and honors classes. And unless the parents spoke up, she spoke about one particular family that she knew, like literally the parents had to get involved with the guidance counselor and be like, no, I want my children enrolled in AP and honors classes because they can handle it. That was the thing that helped these kids get into educate, like into classes that were better aligned with their skills, that really pushed them and allowed them to be in a position to succeed. So you really have to be able to do that as a single mom and feel comfortable speaking up and advocating for your kids. And as this particular mom realized, the principal had a bias and assumed that because she was a single mom, that she was unqualified to be able to speak up and advocate for her child. And I want to record this video just to let you know that that is not true. And for me, I learned, my parents are married, right? But I learned from my parents what it was like to advocate for my child. I watched them advocate for me, and that taught, and well, not just me, but for me and my sisters, but then that taught me how to be able to advocate for my children. And so I'm going to talk to you about 7 things that you can do. And the first thing is ask for opportunities for parent involvement. This can be hit or miss depending on the school that you go to, but literally don't accept no for an answer. If they tell you that there are no opportunities for parents' involvement, don't listen. Don't take that lying down. Look to see if there's a PTA or some sort of volunteer organization. Look to see if you can help out in the classroom. I know I've talked to some parents, and in their schools, sometimes parents are able to come in and read to the children. Sometimes parents are able to be a teacher's helper. So look for areas of opportunities for parent involvement. So at the beginning of the school year, ask what opportunities exist. That's one of the things that I do with my kids' school as well. I ask, how can I be involved? How can I volunteer? How can I assist? How can I help out? Both to understand long-term needs that they might need, but also short-term needs that I can now use to better create, to better fit within my schedule. Right? And so there's different things, at least for my kids' school, where parents are able to be actively involved. And even though I'm a single mom, even though I run my own business, even though I work part-time, I look for ways to make it work within the time that I do have, right? So there's definitely things that you can do. If you have a holiday where you're off at work, but your kids are still in school, maybe that's a day that you're able to come in and help. If there's things, extra school, extracurricular activities, maybe that's something that you can help out with. And so just looking for opportunities that fit within your work schedule. The second thing is establish a routine to review the work that is sent home. So work is sent home. Some stuff is purely online, but even if it's purely online, look to see if you can review what your kids are learning. And so this is a big thing right now that's going on in culture, where parents are shocked to find out what their kids are learning in school. I think one of the things that the pandemic did is it took some of the mystery off of what kids were learning in school, and some parents were shocked, and not in a good way, about what their kids are learning in school. So establish a routine to review the work that is sent home, right? So if stuff is sent home every day, go through the kids' folders, go through the kids' backpacks. If stuff is sent home weekly, go through those papers, go through that stuff, so that way you know what your kids are learning. If stuff is submitted online, ask your children, ask the teacher to figure out how you can review, because at the end of the day, you are your child's first teacher. It's not the teacher, it's not the school. Education responsibility lies with the parents, not the school. The teacher's job and the school's job is to support the parents in educating their kids. So it's never about outsourcing the education to the teachers. They do have the education degree, right? They do have the experience in instructional learning, but you are the parent. So you know your your children best. And it is your job to educate the kids. And it's the school's job to come alongside you. You set the tone. And so I want you to understand that. And so there are some schools, which I've heard stories where the teachers don't want to tell the parents what the kids are learning. That is unacceptable. You have a right to know what your kids are learning, and you can file Freedom of Information Acts to be able to figure it out if that school is being difficult. The third thing is ask your child, how was your day, and listen. Don't, like, you can say, what did you learn at school today? How was your day? What is something that brought you joy today? What's something that upset you today? What was the favorite topic that you learned about today? Different open-ended questions that will allow your children to be able to start to share about what it is that they learned, what excited them, what maybe upset them, right? And just listen without providing advice, listen without providing input. Just listen to them talk, because you can learn a lot just by listening. The fourth thing is establish a relationship with your children's teacher outside of parent-teacher conferences, because you might have parent-teacher conferences once in the fall and once in the spring. That's really not enough to stay on top of what's going on in the classroom, how your child's doing. Is there any type of additional support that your children need, or anything that you might be able to do to supplement their education? One of the things when I was growing up is my parents did a great job of understanding what we were learning, and they knew at that particular time, like, we weren't being challenged in school. So what my parents did is they enrolled us in these supplemental educational programs that were able to fill in a gap for what should have been happening at the school, but it wasn't always. And so we were able to stay at least on grade level or above grade level of what we were learning, because my parents were actively involved in what we were learning, and they were able to work together, sometimes even with the teachers. Sometimes the teachers were like, this is their curriculum. We're not able to go beyond that, but your daughter is really excelling, and this isn't necessarily a challenge. So we suggest that she does this, so that way she doesn't get bored. So these are the types of conversations that you have. And if your child is struggling, the child can get that intervention early. And one of the other things that you can do within this is to quickly check in via email with the teacher, quickly check in with a phone call. It doesn't have to be all the time. It can be monthly. It can be every other month, something like that. It can be a couple of times a month, right? But just sending a quick email to the teacher, reading the correspondence that's coming home from the teacher, and just sending a quick email or doing a quick phone call just to check in and see how your child is doing at school. And the fifth thing is really what I think that this story that I started this video out with is escalating if you're unhappy with the teacher's response. See, the single mom in this particular story, she did not get a response from the teacher. And so she escalated it to the principal, and the principal wasn't necessarily helpful, but she escalated it because she felt confident in her ability to be her child's first teacher. And she did not take that, slap down or whatever the teacher initially tried to do. She just didn't take it. She didn't take no for an answer. And so she escalated it. And you have to feel comfortable escalating if you're unhappy with the child's teacher's response. And if you're not happy with the principal's response, you have to be you have to be comfortable escalating it even further. This is why in the beginning I've said, like, you are your child's first teacher. It is the school's job to come alongside of you as a teacher. And so if you're not happy with what's going on, you have the right to voice your displeasure respectfully and continue to escalate until you get an acceptable response. And if you don't get an acceptable response, then it's a time to explore changing schools, right? Looking into programs where if you're eligible for a voucher or something like that, or any type of scholarship programs that will assist you in changing schools if you're not happy. And so the other thing is, number 6 is ask for your child to be placed with a certain teacher or with supplemental support services. And so one of the things that my parents did when I was young is they researched the teachers. And what they did was, at the beginning, before the classrooms were assigned and everything, they will call up the school and request that me or my sisters be placed with certain teachers based upon what they knew about us and based upon what they learned from parents who had kids older than us and how the teachers were. And so they did not it was funny. My mom said it technically wasn't allowed. It was supposed to be a lottery, but she said she just kind of looked at it and was just like, okay, you say it's a lottery, but I know my child best. And I think that my child is going to thrive with this teacher. So I need my child to be placed with this particular teacher, right? And the school accommodated it. And so we have to be confident in speaking up and voicing and advocating for our children. Or if you believe that your child might need supplemental support services, ask for that. Ask if if your child needs help with reading, with math. Ask what type of supplemental tutoring services there are. Sometimes these teachers have so many kids that they're dealing with, they might not have time to spend the specialized support that your child might need. And that's where you come in and ask for it, right? But it also takes listening and being actively involved and knowing what your child is learning and knowing your child's response to what it is that they're learning. And so the last thing is number 7, ask members of your support system to help with homework. And so as a single mom, like, we have to be in so many places at one time. We have to work, or we're entrepreneurs. We're running a household, managing the finances, doing making sure our kids get to all these extracurricular activities. And sometimes it can be a lot. And so here's where your support system can come in. So, or the thing is as your children get older, right, you might not know what it is. You might not know how to help them. I remember, by the grace of God, when I was in AP Physics, right? My dad was able to help me with physics because he was great at it. He knew it. It was a subject that he felt comfortable with. So when I was struggling in physics, my dad was able to help me, right? But if your child is in physics or your child is in calculus, you might not have the skill set to be able to help your kid with their homework. And I do want to share this one story about, Dr. Ben Carson. His mom was illiterate, but that didn't mean that she couldn't help him with his reading homework. What she did is, even though she couldn't read, she was determined for him to read. And what she would do is she would assign books for him to read, and he would have to, or he could pick out his own books. But one of the things is that he had to write a book report and turn it into her. And so he had no idea that his mom couldn't read, and she wasn't actually reading the book reports. It was the exercise in making him do it. And so I want to say this. So even if you have somebody in your support system, you don't have anybody in your support system who might not, or who can be able to help your kids with some of this advanced stuff, then, just have them do the homework anyway, right? Or just, this is where you speak up and ask for some of those supplemental services at the school to see who can help your child do it. But just the process of just making sure that your child does the homework to begin with is helpful. And if you're unable to help with homework because of a work schedule, or like I said, if it wasn't a strength, then ask for help. Look into your church. Maybe if you have somebody you're close with at work, or at school, see who can help, so that way your child is still getting the support and the help that he or she needs. And so even if you are early on in motherhood, even if you have a child that might not be in kindergarten yet and it's still early childhood, there are still tons of things that you can do to advocate for your child's education, because all of these things definitely still apply. You can still look for areas where you can volunteer. You can still keep in contact with the teacher. It is literally a great training ground to be able to get that practice in for when your children are going to be older. And so don't shy away just because your child might be in preschool or pre-K or, childcare. Still ask, what is going on? What is your child learning? How can you help? And at these early stages, it just looks a little bit different. It looks like reading with your child. It looks like, practicing the counting. It looks like, being in the grocery store and asking your child, what color is that apple? And then the child, if it's a red apple, red. If it's a green, green. What color are those grapes? How many apples, like if you're in a grocery store and you bag up some apples, how many apples are in this bag? How many apples did mommy just buy? Like those types of things where you can get in the practice early on to educate and advocate for your kids, because this is a skill and you have to learn to be comfortable. And when I tell you the number of stories that I've heard, even from single moms of children who are not yet in kindergarten, who do not feel comfortable talking to the preschool teacher about what their children are learning, or, concerns about the child's development, you have to get to the point, like I keep saying, where you understand that that is your responsibility to make sure your child gets educated, and it's the school's job to come alongside of you and to be that support. And so you need to be comfortable. You definitely need to be comfortable with what's going on. You need to be present and you need to be involved. And that is, like I said, one thing that I do with my kids. I volunteer. I communicate with their teacher regularly. And then the other thing is, if the teacher tells you something that's going on that might not be the best about your child, don't flip out on the teacher. Listen, figure out where he or she is coming from and ask yourself, are you seeing the same things? If you're not, maybe there might be a disconnect between behavior at home and at school, and you guys can partner and work together to address it. And if there is some similarities and some crossover, then you guys can brainstorm about how to address it at school and at home. Like, your teachers, most of them want to do what's right. They want to do a good job. They want to help your child. And it is an amazing support system for you as well when you have a great teacher. And so make sure you maintain those open lines of communication. If you get a behavioral report, don't flip out, right? Don't flip out. Listen, figure out what's going on, and then see how you guys can address it together for the best interest for the child. And if whatever reason, it's not a good teacher or something, and what's happening isn't true, by being involved, you can understand that too and be in a better position to advocate for your child. But that parent-teacher partnership is important. It's one of the beautiful things that I've been able to do with all of my kids' teachers, is have that beautiful parent-teacher relationship. And I feel like it just makes it so much better for my kids. It makes it better for me. And I think that my kids are able to grow even more because of that intentional effort on my part to be able to foster those relationships that I have with my kids' teachers. And it's wonderful. It allows me to stay in the know about what's going on at school. And it really just puts me in the best position where I know what's going on with my kids' education. I know how to support them, and I know how to support the teachers. And I think that my kids are better off because of it. And so I just want to share those nuggets with you today to help you to be an advocate for your kids' education. Because one of the other things is, and then I'm going to wrap up, is that just what ends up happening, what I've seen within the school district, is sometimes single moms don't have all the choice that other parents might have in terms of where they send their kids to school. And so they typically, and I say this like not trying to do stereotypes, but just speaking reality, just because of what I've seen through my work within the educational area, is with single moms, they tend not to have a lot of choice where they send their kids to school. So it ends up being the neighborhood school or their local school system. And so whereas some families might be able to pull their kids if they're not happy with the child's education, the single moms have to leave their kids in unless they can get scholarship money or vouchers or some other way to be able to pull the kid from the school. So it becomes very important that you learn how to advocate for your child, so that way, even if your child isn't in the greatest school system, you can still create an amazing educational experience for your child. Because for a period of my life when I was growing up, we were not in a good school system. But my parents, through being active in our education until they could afford to remove us from that school system, they were actively involved in that school system, and they were able to cultivate and create a phenomenal educational experience for us while we were still there. And this is why it's important to be involved, be a part of the discussions, seeing also what type of money is available There's tons of scholarships for different extracurricular things as well, to be able to understand how your child learns and what your child needs to be able to thrive. And that takes you taking your role as your child's advocate, primary teacher, responsible for their education, and forging a solid partnership with the school, so that way your child is in the best position to thrive. And last but not least, find advocates for your school. There are people, there are believers in the school. There are people in the school who would be willing to fight for you and advocate for your child. It just sometimes takes talking to different people to locate who some of these people are, who you can have in your corner to help make sure that your child is getting the best experience possible at the school. Because it's important. We need to make sure the kids are doing well in their reading, their writing, their arithmetic, right? And being well positioned. And early childhood is so important because the research has shown that there are certain milestones that the kids should hit before they get to kindergarten. They call it kindergarten readiness, because how a child enters kindergarten really sets the stage for the rest of their education. And children who are not ready for kindergarten tend to struggle throughout the rest of the school year. So if you have children who are not in kindergarten yet, look for supplemental programs, look for scholarships for extracurricular activities. Find extracurricular activities, even if you don't need the scholarships, but make sure your child is proficient in reading. Make sure they're beginning, age appropriate reading, right? Because, in first grade and actually in kindergarten, they start reading a lot more, and more so in first grade. But still, there's a lot of reading. A lot of single moms I know, their kids can read by the time they get to kindergarten. Hooked on Phonics has a great curriculum as well. That was something that somebody recommended to me very early on. Hooked on Phonics, I think, is fantastic. Taking your child to the library, summer reading programs, all of those things to get your child reading early, get your child recognizing letters, numbers, colors, all of those foundational building blocks, finding play-based learning spaces in your community. All of those things can help position your child to be kindergarten ready. And these are things that you can do early on to be an active advocate for your child's education. So with that being said, let me know how this has helped you. Let me know which one is that you're going to start working on, and what tip is really going to help you to be an advocate for your child's education. And I just want to encourage you to pick up my book, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood, because in that book, I talk about healing emotionally, mentally, managing your finances, and really setting yourself up for success as a single mom, as a new single mom. And so that definitely will help you. So Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood. And don't be fooled, because it says through the first year of motherhood. That is really designed to help single moms facing an unexpected pregnancy to be able to land well. But the building blocks that you learn here in that book will position you throughout the rest of your motherhood. Just like we talked about kindergarten readiness and positioning your child to be able to learn throughout high school and beyond. This book will really help you to be able to land well and to be able to position yourself to go into single motherhood with a strong start, so that way you can have the mental awareness, the emotional healing to be able to take on these roles, right? And know that it's never too soon to advocate for your child as well. So hopefully this has blessed you. Oh yeah, and you can pick up the book on Amazon.com. So hopefully this has blessed you. Let me know how you like it. Make sure you like this video, love it, subscribe, share it with friends, and leave a comment. All right.